Ethan Williams had everything most men only dream of. A glass office high above the city, a company that carried his name, and a quiet power that came with success. But behind the sharp suits and shiny cars was a man who hadn't healed from one thing, her. Sophie Miller. The woman who once said she loved him. The same woman who walked out the moment life got hard. That morning, Ethan's assistant, Clara, stepped into his office holding a gold envelope. "Sir, this just came in. It's marked personal." Ethan looked up from his laptop, uninterested, until his eyes caught the handwriting. His chest tightened instantly. He knew that handwriting too well. Perfect loops, delicate strokes, it was Sophie's. For a few seconds, he just stared. He didn't even need to open it. His heart already knew it would hurt. But he tore it open anyway. Inside, a wedding invitation shimmered under the light. "You are cordially invited to the wedding ceremony of Sophie Miller and Andrew Collins." Ethan froze. His throat went dry. It wasn't just an invitation, it was a wound reopened. He leaned back in his chair, reading it again and again, each word cutting deeper. Sophie, getting married. And not just to anyone. To Andrew Collins, the billionaire she'd chosen over him. Clara quietly stepped out, sensing his mood. Ethan sat alone, the silence heavy around him. 3 years ago, Sophie had left him when his life was still chaos. His business had been struggling, debts were piling up, and he had nothing but dreams. She told him, "Ethan, I can't build a future on promises. I need stability." He had watched her walk away that night under the rain, her heels clicking against the wet pavement. Now, she was inviting him to her wedding. Why? To gloat? To prove she'd made the right choice? Ethan laughed under his breath, but there was no humor in it. So, that's how she wants to play it. He looked out the window at the city lights below. 4 years, he'd fought to prove he could make it. Not for fame. Not even for money. But to prove she was wrong about him. And now, he would show her. But he wouldn't go alone. No, he needed someone with him. Not a model or influencer who screamed for attention. He needed someone so unexpected that Sophie wouldn't see it coming. Someone real. The next morning, Ethan's car slowed in front of a small street market. Among the noise of vendors and honking cars, he saw her, a woman sitting quietly by the roadside with a basket of flowers. Her clothes were worn, her hair unkempt, but her posture carried grace. Her face was tired but kind. Ethan stepped out and walked toward her. The next morning began with the smell of fresh bread and the sound of soft footsteps in the hallway. Grace woke up slowly, blinking at the golden curtains that danced in the morning sun. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The sheets were silk, the room smelled of lavender, and the floor was warm beneath her bare feet. It felt unreal. Just yesterday, she'd been sleeping on a wooden bench near a bakery. Now, she was inside a mansion. A knock came at the door. "Good morning, Miss Grace," said Mrs. Carter, stepping in with a polite smile. "Mr. Williams asked me to help you prepare for the day." Grace sat up quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, this all feels strange." Mrs. Carter smiled kindly. "It's all right, dear. Everyone deserves a fresh start sometimes." Those words lingered in Grace's heart. She followed Mrs. Carter to a private dressing area. The room was filled with clothes of every kind. Dresses, heels, jewelry that sparkled like stars. A hairstylist and makeup artist were already waiting. Grace's eyes widened. "Are all these for me?" Mrs. Carter nodded. "Mr. Williams insisted you be treated like a queen today." Grace gave a nervous laugh. "He shouldn't have gone through all this trouble. I'm not used to this kind of life." Mrs. Carter smiled. "Maybe it's time you were." Hours passed. The transformation was quiet but powerful. Grace stared at her reflection in the mirror when they were done. The woman staring back at her looked nothing like the one who used to sleep by the roadside. Her hair fell smoothly over her shoulders, her skin glowed, and the emerald green dress hugged her softly, elegant yet simple. For the first time in years, she felt seen. When Ethan walked into the room, he stopped mid-step. For a man who'd seen luxury every day of his life, nothing had ever caught him off guard quite like that moment. Grace turned to face him. "Well, do I look presentable?" Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "You look perfect." She smiled shyly. "You sound surprised." He chuckled. "I didn't expect this. I thought you'd be uncomfortable with all this." "I am," she admitted, "but I've learned something. Sometimes life throws you into rooms you never thought you'd belong in. You can either walk out, or learn how to stand tall inside them." Ethan's eyes softened. "You've got more strength than most people I know." Grace shrugged gently. "Pain teaches that." They stood in silence for a moment. Something unspoken passed between them. A quiet understanding that came from two people who had both been broken, but refused to stay that way. Later that evening, as they sat at the dining table, the air carried a sense of calm. The golden light from the chandelier painted their faces softly. Ethan finally broke the silence. "You asked for honesty. So here it is." Grace looked up, listening. "The wedding I'm going to, it's my ex's. She left me when I had nothing. Back then, I was working on my first business. Money was tight, and I couldn't give her the life she wanted. She said she couldn't wait around for dreams." He looked down at his plate. "She married someone wealthier. And now she's invited me to her wedding. I think she wants to remind me I wasn't enough." Grace studied his face quietly. "So, you want to show her that you are?" Ethan gave a tired smile. "Something like that." Grace tilted her head. "Do you still love her?" That question caught him off guard. He thought about it, then shook his head slowly. "No. I just hate how she made me feel, small, invisible, worthless." Grace nodded. "People like that don't just break hearts, Ethan. They make you question your worth. But the funny thing is, once you heal, you realize they only left because they couldn't see your value in the first place." Her words hit him deeper than he expected. He leaned back. "You talk like someone who's seen the worst of people." "I have," she said softly, eyes lowering. "But I've also seen the best in people who had nothing. I learned that kindness can survive even in the dirt." Ethan wanted to ask more, but there was a sadness in her tone that stopped him. Instead, he said, "When this is over, I'll tell you everything. You'll know the truth." Grace nodded. "And when this is over, I'll tell you mine too." Later that night, Ethan stood by the balcony, watching the stars. He couldn't stop thinking about her words. There was something about Grace, something deep, almost hauntingly familiar. She carried pain with quiet dignity, the kind only those who had truly suffered could understand. Inside, Grace sat by her window, looking at the moon. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about survival. She was thinking about tomorrow, about walking into a world that had once spit her out, this time with her head held high. Neither of them knew that the wedding would not just change how Sophie saw Ethan. It would also bring Grace face to face with the past she'd been running from. The morning of the wedding arrived like a storm calm before chaos. The Collins estate gleamed under the sunlight, white walls glinting and gardens perfectly trimmed. Guests arrived in expensive cars, laughter and chatter filling the air. Yet, amid the grandeur, a quiet tension followed Ethan and Grace. Grace stood beside Ethan, her posture straight, her emerald dress flowing elegantly. She looked nothing like the woman who had begged on streets just weeks ago. She looked like she belonged in this world, and that made her even more dangerous in Sophie's eyes. Ethan noticed the subtle glances, the whispers of intrigue and curiosity from the well-dressed crowd. It made him smile, knowing their plan was already working. But he also felt something he hadn't expected: pride. Pride in Grace, in her calm strength, in how she carried herself with dignity. Sophie Miller, the bride, arrived in a sea of white. Her eyes swept the crowd, finally landing on Ethan. The corner of her lips twitched, almost a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then, as they followed each other with glances, her gaze landed on Grace. The effect was immediate. Sophie's face paled, and her perfectly poised composure faltered. Something about Grace, the way she carried herself, the quiet confidence, stirred recognition. It was in that instant Ethan realized Grace wasn't just a random choice. She had history. During the ceremony, Grace stayed close to Ethan, observing Sophie carefully. Every laugh, every forced smile, seemed a little hollow. Ethan leaned toward Grace. "Do you want to do this quietly, or make it memorable?" he asked softly. Grace's lips curved into a faint smile. "Memorable," she said simply. "It's time the truth comes out." By the time the reception began, Grace looked radiant. She moved among the guests with ease, her eyes catching whispers from Sophie every few steps. Then, finally, the moment arrived. Grace stood in the middle of the room, voice calm yet carrying a sharp authority. "Sophie Miller," she said, turning to the bride. "Do you remember me?" The room went silent. Sophie's smile froze. Guests turned, intrigued. "3 years ago," Grace continued, "I was the caregiver for your grandmother, Mrs. Margaret Brown. I dedicated years to caring for her. And yet, you accused me of theft and poisoning, just so you could inherit your grandmother's fortune without question. You destroyed my reputation, my life, and left me homeless." Gasps spread through the room. Sophie's hands trembled, and Andrew, her soon-to-be husband, looked confused and horrified. Grace held out a folder. "Here is proof." She opened it to reveal letters from Mrs. Brown, medical reports, and witness statements. Each one bore the truth of Sophie's lies. Every word, every piece of paper, made the crowd murmur in disbelief. Sophie's face turned pale, lips quivering. I. Ethan stood beside Grace, silently proud, watching the woman who had once left him powerless, now confronted by the consequences of her own cruelty. The estate erupted into chaos. Police officers stepped forward to arrest Sophie for elder abuse, inheritance fraud, and defamation. Guests whispered feverishly, pulling out phones to capture the unfolding scandal. Andrew, horrified, turned away from the bride, muttering something about annulling the marriage. Through it all, Grace stayed calm. Her eyes met Ethan's, and for the first time, he saw the peace that comes from reclaiming a stolen life. Later, when the crowd had dispersed and the scandal went viral, Ethan and Grace stood on the balcony overlooking the estate. The night air was cool, the chaos below fading into a distant hum. "You handled that brilliantly," Ethan said quietly. Grace smiled faintly. "I didn't do it for me," she said. "I did it so no one else would have to suffer because of lies like hers." Ethan reached for her hand, holding it firmly. "And somehow, in the middle of all this, I feel like we've both healed a little tonight." Grace's eyes softened. "Maybe. But there's still a long way to go." Ethan smiled. "Then we'll walk it together." And for the first time in years, neither of them felt small, invisible, or powerless. They had faced the storm and come out stronger, ready to rebuild their lives on truth, dignity, and the beginnings of love. After the chaos of the wedding, the world seemed to slow for Ethan and Grace. The scandal had gone viral, Sophie's crimes exposed, and the estate left in disarray. But in the quiet of Ethan's mansion, something else began, a slower, gentler kind of transformation. Grace settled back into the mansion, but this time not as a guest. Ethan wanted her to feel at home, and slowly, she did. She helped around the house, bringing warmth to the cold corridors, and her laughter, soft, genuine, became a new kind of music in the rooms Ethan had long thought empty. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Ethan found Grace in the kitchen, carefully arranging flowers in a vase. He leaned against the doorway, watching her in silence. "You look happy," he said softly. Grace looked up, a small smile on her lips. "I've never had a place to feel like this. Safe. Respected. 4 years, I only had survival. No. I can breathe." Ethan walked closer, sitting beside her. "You deserve more than just breathing, Grace. You deserve to live fully." I want to be part of that." Her eyes met his. There was no pretense, no caution, only honesty. "I've been hurt before, Ethan. Love has cost me too much." He took her hand gently. "I know. And I'll never ask you to risk that again. But maybe we can start with trust. Step by step." Grace felt a warmth spread through her chest she hadn't felt in years. Trust wasn't easy for her, but with Ethan, it didn't feel like a leap, it felt like coming home. In the weeks that followed, Grace returned to her true calling, caregiving. With Ethan's support, she got her references back, her reputation restored, and even a small team that recognized her talent and heart. Her resilience inspired others, And each day she walked into her work with renewed strength. Ethan watched her thrive and felt an admiration that went deeper than attraction. He realized he loved her not just for her beauty, but for her courage, her kindness, and the dignity she carried even when life had tried to strip it away. One quiet night, as they sat on the balcony under a canopy of stars, Ethan turned to her. "Grace, would you be mine? Not as someone to protect, but as someone I want to share my life with." Grace's breath caught. She had never thought she would hear those words spoken with such honesty. Her heart raced, but a smile spread across her face. "Yes, Ethan. I want that too." From that night onward, their lives intertwined. They shared laughter, tears, and dreams they had once thought impossible. Their connection grew stronger with each passing day, built on mutual respect and understanding rather than mere attraction. Months later, Grace discovered she was pregnant. The news brought tears, laughter, and a quiet celebration shared only between them. They would have twins, a symbol of new beginnings and the life they were building together. Ethan and Grace chose an intimate wedding, simple and heartfelt. Friends and a few family members attended, the chaos of the past replaced with joy and promise. Grace walked down a small aisle, hand in hand with Ethan, their smiles radiant. When they exchanged vows, it wasn't just about love, it was about survival, justice, and hope. Every word carried the weight of their shared journey and the triumph over pain and betrayal. Their twins, Ethan Jr. and Margaret, would grow up surrounded by love, never knowing the hardships that once threatened to break them. For Ethan and Grace, the past had been a teacher, and the future a gift waiting to be unwrapped. Sitting together after the ceremony, Ethan looked at Grace, their hands intertwined. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Grace rested her head on his shoulder. "We have. And we'll go further, together." They didn't need wealth, status, or revenge anymore. They had each other, and sometimes that was more than enough. In that quiet moment, with the city lights twinkling below and the stars above, they knew one thing for certain: truth, resilience, and love had led them here, and nothing could take it away. The years passed gently, carrying Ethan and Grace into a life they had once only dreamed of. The mansion no longer felt cold or empty. It echoed with laughter, tiny footsteps, and the soft coos of twins. Ethan Jr. and Margaret had arrived, filling every corner with warmth and joy. Grace watched them play in the garden, her hands brushing the soft grass as she smiled. She had come so far, from sleeping on a wooden bench and carrying the weight of betrayal, to standing here, surrounded by love and family. Every hardship, every scar, every tear had led her to this moment. Ethan approached quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "They're beautiful," he said, voice full of pride. Grace turned, her eyes shining. "Not as beautiful as this," she said softly, nodding toward him. He laughed, a deep, contented sound. "We did this together." It wasn't just about the children. Their love had grown stronger through shared struggles and triumphs. Every moment of pain had been tempered by the patience and understanding they had for each other. The world outside still moved fast, still had its injustices and betrayals, but inside their home, there was peace. Grace had rebuilt her career, not just as a caregiver, but as a mentor to young women who had been overlooked or underestimated. She shared her story openly, inspiring them to hold on to dignity and strength no matter the circumstances. Ethan supported her, not just financially, but emotionally. Together, they created a foundation to help women rebuild their lives after hardship, ensuring that Grace's journey of resilience became a beacon for others. One quiet evening, as the twins slept, Ethan and Grace sat together by the fireplace. The flames cast a soft glow across their faces, illuminating the peace and love they had fought so hard to find. "I can hardly believe how far we've come," Ethan said, his voice quiet, almost reverent. Grace leaned into him, resting her head on his chest. "I don't need to believe it. I feel it. Every day." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "This is our legacy. Our love, our strength, the life we've built. Nothing and no one can take that away." Grace smiled, tears of happiness glistening in her eyes. "And the best part? It's only just beginning." They held each other in the quiet warmth of the night, knowing that no past betrayal, no heartbreak, and no injustice could ever overshadow the life they had claimed for themselves. Their twins would grow up knowing the power of truth, the strength of resilience, and the beauty of love that never gave up. And in the end, Ethan and Grace had not only found each other, they had built a life that was more than wealth or revenge. They had built a legacy. A legacy of hope, love, and the unshakable belief that no matter how broken life may seem, the heart can always find its way back to joy.